the last time I saw him, he had hair that was, yay high. Mm-hmm. He's like got a mop on his head.
Welcome to Table
like,
Talk,
dude,
where there's always room at the table. I am your host, Jonathan Harmon of the J. Harmon Home Team, and we can't wait to talk to these fine guests. Enjoy the show.
How you doing? Ignore the man behind the.
All right, are we live, Trent? We are live. Good afternoon. It's Jonathan Harmon of the J. Harmon Home Team, powered by Keller Williams. That says it's Table Talk, so I believe it. And we've got some wonderful guests today, and I cannot wait to talk to Miss Erika Downing. And we'll do that whole story here in a minute. But before I forget, because I do tend to forget, Trent, let's give a shout out to our buddy, Mr. Brian Nail. I just got off the phone with him literally as I was walking in the door here, and he is always trying to help folks. So he's got somebody that's looking for a short-term rental. If you got a short-term rental, not necessarily an Airbnb, but a short-term rental, like a month-to-month type situation, let me know. I'll get it over to Brian. He's got somebody looking. So maybe we'll find something.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. But anyway, so we love Brian Nail over at Primus Mortgage. Let's hear from Brian.
Hey, my name is Brian Nail. I'm a mortgage loan officer at Primus Bank Mortgage, and I want to tell you that I absolutely love being a member of the Spread the Positive Network. It's such a great mission, and it helps bring so much positivity to our community. It's a true pleasure to be part of.
Get ready to dance.
There are a lot of ways to navigate financing a home, and in markets like this, having the advice of a trusted local professional is key to making sure you get the right advice for your specific circumstances. Whether you're interested in the purchase of a new home, second home, or have a need for a refinance, I'd love to earn your trust. If I can help you nail your mortgage, call me at 615-243-3976 or visit nailyourmortgage.com, and I'll be happy to talk with you.
Primus Mortgage is a subsidiary of Primus Bank, a member FDIC, equal housing opportunity. As always, all loans are subject to approval. Primus Mortgage, NMLS number 1894879.
Yeah.
And the Emmy for the best tagline in the mortgage industry goes to Mr. Brian Nail with Nail Your Mortgage. That's right. We love that guy. So, Erika.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I feel a little bit out of my element, but that's okay.
Why is that?
This is not really my forte, but I'm happy to be here and happy to spread the mission and positivity that we provide in the community.
Well, you have a heck of an organization to represent. You have a lot of things to be excited about over there. You're doing some great work. And
my staff is doing some really, really great work.
Well, great staff works under great leadership. So anyway, so we're going to talk about that. And I want to hear about you first. So Erika Downing, go.
So I'm born and raised in Murfreesboro. I'm probably that unicorn. That's
Which high school?
I went to Riverdale.
Oh.
I'm going to say that you went to Oakland.
No, I'm a Smyrna guy.
Bless
your heart. Yeah, what year did you graduate from Oakland? Riverdale?
I graduated in 96.
We're almost the same. I was 97 in Smyrna.
Okay, there you go.
You guys owned us in football.
We really did.
You're a ranking person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We had an amazing
Y'all
team.
cheated.
He may have recruited just slightly. No, but we had a really, really good team.
You did.
Yeah.
For sure.
Really, really good.
Yeah. All right. So born and raised, Rutherford County, Riverdale High School, grew up here. You spent 19 years working
in probation.
Oh, how is
misdemeanor probation. Sometimes it's dealing with adults who act like children.
Yes.
It's can be rewarding work, but it can also be frustrating work.
For sure.
Because some people just don't want to change, and you can't make someone change if they don't want to.
Well, and it's certainly underappreciated, right? Like, very few people, I'm sure, sent you thank you cards.
No, absolutely not. I probably got more threats than anything else. You do get that thank you at the end of the day, maybe 4 or 5 years down the road when you're out in public, they see you with your family, and they want to say, hey, I had this because of you. You made me toe the line. I
got my stuff together.
I got my stuff together, and you helped me do that. So you get that. It's not that instant gratification, but you do get that thank you here and there. But you're not. I didn't feel like I was truly making an impact in the community as what I was doing.
Gotcha. So you got out of the probation world, and you jumped right into.
I went right into the fire. So I became the executive director in December of 2019. So I completely switched gears from holding offenders accountable to being victim-centered, trauma-informed, and really being there for someone in those moments where they need someone supporting them and standing behind them.
So this is at the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center.
Yes.
Here in Murfreesboro. And in a nutshell, and we'll really break this open and really talk about it, but in a nutshell, what do you guys do?
So I say that we have 4 core services with our organization. So we have our core advocacy department. So we help those that are trying to follow those order protections. There's been a relationship established, that there's been fear, there's been intimidation, there's been physical threats, that they are wanting to file that order protection for. So
Is that what a layman would call a restraining order?
Well, a restraining order would be something different than an order of protection. The order of protection has that relationship that's been established. In order to file an order of protection, you have to have that relationship established. A restraining order necessarily doesn't have to have that relationship established, that personal relationship established, but you have to have an attorney to file a restraining order.
So pretend that I'm harassing you, you don't know me, that's a restraining order.
That would be a restraining order.
But we were in a relationship
If we
together.
were in a dating relationship, then that could be an order of protection.
Gotcha. Okay, I see the difference.
And so we have advocates that walk someone through that entire process from start to finish, because there are court dates that are involved. They do have to be in court with their abuser, and that's really tough sometimes to ask someone to be in the same room again with their abuser. And so we want to make sure that they understand what that looks like from start to finish. And sometimes that's enough for somebody to say, you know what, I don't know that I'm ready to do this, and I don't know that I want to go forward.
Wow.
But we want to make sure that they understand what that looks like from start to finish so they can make that informed decision. We want to make sure that we're giving them their power and control back, because that's what's part of what's been taken from them. So we want to make sure that they have that back.
And so often that's what the abuse really is about. It's about control and being over and having power over someone else.
Yes, absolutely. It's not about love. It's about power and control. It's about isolation, intimidation, really pretty much, telling someone they're not worth anything. No one else is going to want you, be with you, isolating them from their family and their friends. And once, you hear something so many times, that's what you believe is your reality. And so we really want to empower our survivors that they remember that they are worth something. And we want to show them that they are and remind them of that, because they've forgotten about that.
Yeah.
And they're so much stronger than what they think that they are, but they have to have that support.
Yeah, and somebody to hit. I call it, in the negotiation world, I call it the pattern interrupt, right? Like, I'm going to say this, and you're going to expect me to say this, and then I'm going to say this, and like you've already chess moved it out in your head. So if that person has a great day and they, they're feeling a little stronger today, and so they're going to stand up, as soon as that happens, they've already played out in their head, that person's going to say that, you know what I mean? And it's just wash, rinse, repeat. So you need somebody to step in. You guys are the somebody to step in and say,
Right.
Hold on, time out, pattern interrupt. No, here's your reality.
Absolutely. And really someone to come in and break that cycle.
Yeah.
And show them something different. Typically, there is a power and control wheel, and it shows things like intimidation and physical threats and just those isolations. And typically, if you can lay that out in front of somebody, they can see that in black and white. You start recognizing what you have been through and what you've experienced.
And the fact that there's a system to it, and it's documented, and it's on a wheel, and it's like all of this, all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I'm not the only one.
Exactly.
I'm not alone. This happens to other people.
Exactly. And sometimes that's just that reality of, you feel like you're suffering in silence and no one really understands what you're going through. And once you start establishing, okay, this is not something that only you experience. There are other people that are experiencing this.
And not only is it not something that you experience alone, it's not okay.
It's absolutely
it is
not okay.
It is not normal and okay and the way things should be.
Absolutely. And, and sometimes that's what they've grown up in as well. What we grow up in, what we think is normal. And so if they've, been raised in a family of abuse, or they've had prior abusive relationships, that's what their normal is. And sometimes it's stepping outside of that and going, okay, this is no longer normal.
Isn't that wild? And, it's so easy for folks that are inexperienced and have never been in a circumstance like that, and have never found themselves on the receiving end of that. It's so easy to go, well, we'll just leave. We'll just leave.
Absolutely.
It's really not that easy, is it?
It's not that easy, and I almost hate that question every single time I hear it because there are so many other dynamics that are involved, and sometimes it's the fear of what you know is better than the unknown, and they know their abuser's triggers, and they know exactly what that looks like, and they also know the danger that they're facing when they may leave.
And sometimes the abuser has the upper hand because they also are a provider, right?
Yes.
So there's this double-edged, if I leave, well, then what? Yeah, I have no skills. I have no, I haven't been in the workforce for however long, or I have this disability or whatever, right?
Yeah,
I have these
absolutely.
small children. I have, fill in the blank.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of the abuse is that financial abuse and that verbal abuse as well. But a lot of it is that financial abuse is that some of our survivors don't know what's in the checking account or what resources are out there or even how to apply for simple, programs because they have been their
Isolated.
window has been isolated so much. They don't know what else is out there that exists. So and in order to leave your abuser, you have to have some kind of plan. You have to have resources. And a lot of the times, the abuser is the holder of all of those
Right.
resources.
So that's the problem, right? That's what we're up against. And the center exists to like you said, break that cycle and to give some kind of hope, give some kind of plan, some kind of light through that window, through that door to get somebody out of that situation. So how does it work?
So typically, we have clients that call us or we have families that call us that say, hey, we have a friend that's in an abusive relationship.
So they see it in someone else's place.
In someone else's place. And so they may call on their behalf or we may have the survivor themselves call and say, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know what this looks like.
But this has to stop.
But something needs to give, and I don't know what that looks like. And that typically starts, with that conversation of, okay, well, what do you want to see happen? Like, what do you want? And sometimes it's that order of protection. Sometimes it's they need our emergency safe shelter. That they need a when they go into our emergency safe shelter, like we're letting them decompress for a couple of days before we go, okay, what's next?
Right.
What is the game handling? Let's get this going because there are so many things that they are processing. Trauma makes it really hard to focus on simple tasks at hand.
Sure.
And when you're in the moment of trauma, even the thought of even like knowing to contact us or another organization, your thought processes are different. They don't fire in the same way. Like your trauma brain is in the back of your brain. And until you can move to the front of your brain, those logical thoughts are like hard to really grasp at that point.
Yeah.
And really just kind of feeling like lost and so beaten up, emotionally and physically that you just don't even know where to begin. And you really don't know that there is someone out there that actually wants to help you.
And can help you.
And can,
right?
yes.
Has the ability, the resources, the knowledge, the experience to actually help and not just give you bad advice. Why don't you just leave?
Right. And it's really hard when somebody discloses to any abuse that they may have experienced because they don't know how the world is going to perceive that.
Right. Because that abuser has probably said, well, this is your fault anyway.
Absolutely, and then sometimes you have people that victim blame and shame. And so if I come out and say, hey, he's abusing me, and you go, what did you do?
Well, of course he hit you.
It's like your dinner wasn't on the table at, on
Whatever,
time.
yeah.
Like, he's in a bad mood when he comes home from work. Like, what did you do? And we focus so much on what the victim does or the survivor does, and we don't focus on like the perpetrator's behavior. Same thing in a sexual assault. You see those things in the media. We're focusing on what the perpetrator does. What the victim does, but not what the perpetrator does. And so it's like, why was she out late? Why was she drinking? Why was she wearing that?
Right.
And we're not focusing on.
You're just inviting it when you.
You know.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that prevents people from going forward. If we're not creating an environment where it's okay to disclose the violence that they're going through, it's really hard for people to come forward.
Now, so the center's been around for a long, long time.
Yes, since 1986.
Right. I remember hearing about it, all the way back, when I was at Smyrna, the good school. And, yeah, sorry, just
Fair
throw
enough.
that out there.
Yeah.
But when did it change? When did the center add the sexual assault component to that?
So
or differentiate, I guess.
So when we started out, of course, we just focused on domestic violence services.
Right.
And in 2007, we merged with a sexual assault program. And so that's
okay.
when we became a dual agency.
So what, just from a victim standpoint, what do you see as the main differences between your clients that come in for either? I assume that there's probably some that come in that fall under both categories, right? But I would also assume that there's significant numbers of folks that are one or the other. And what is the difference? Like, help me understand better and be able to recognize.
So I would say a majority of our clients that are coming in are for domestic violence related.
Mm-hmm. And so domestic violence, kind of like the order of protection, they live in a situation where a partner or somebody close to them, parent, uncle, whatever, right, is abusing them in some way, shape, or form.
Yes, and that can be physical, that can be verbal, that can be emotional.
And probably repeatedly.
And absolutely, there's a pattern to that behavior. There's an escalation to that period.
Mm-hmm.
Really, something can be so insignificant that can snowball into something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Someone, tracking your phone, someone constantly showing up at your work, really looking at, okay, well, you drove 17 miles today and you only live 4 miles from your job. So where did you go?
Who did you see? What
Who did you
do?
see?
Yeah.
Let me see your
How long were you
phone.
there?
How,
Right.
And those things, and just really trying to really control every aspect of their life. And then cutting off those resources and their support system. A lot of our clients have been isolated from their family and friends, or when they've disclosed, they felt like they haven't been believed, and so they don't know where else to go or who to turn to.
And that differentiates from your sexual assault, folks. Is that often repeated, or is it like, I don't know how to say this, like one time type situation? Like, who do you get that reports for that?
Typically, sexual assaults are severely underreported.
Yes, I've heard that before.
Absolutely, 100%. Typically, a lot of the sexual assault survivors that we work with, this is not the first time that they've been sexually assaulted.
By the same person? So is it a different
It's been a
situation?
different abuse situation. Sometimes it's been a family member, sometimes it's been a friend, but there's typically a history of that sexual assault. That's typically not the first time. And it may be the first time that they reported, but it's typically not the first time that it's happened.
And I just pure ignorance here, right? So tip of the iceberg as far as what I know about all this stuff, but basically a lot of similar emotions where there's a devaluation, there's a fear of repercussion, of victim blaming, those kinds of things. And is that oftentimes why it's underreported?
I think so, and also that they don't feel like they're going to be believed. Sometimes, there's that blame on themselves, that they feel like they're a part of what happened.
Somehow they brought it on
Somehow
themselves.
they brought it on themselves. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, all those things that they hear in the outside world is what they internalize. And they're afraid that they're not going to be believed. And coming forward and actually submitting to a sexual assault examination or even reporting to law enforcement, those are scary things to go through. And if you don't think you're going to be believed.
Well, and just based on TV, it's not like they're the most caring and gentle and loving and like nurturing type environments a lot of times.
Yes, I mean, when you walk into, a hospital setting and you've been sexually assaulted, you're in the emergency room and you've got everybody like hearing what's going on and you're just kind of processing what happened and then you're waiting for that exam.
And it could take a long time. And,
it can take several hours to
where you lose your nerve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, there are nurses that are specially trained to collect that evidence, and it's not an easy process to go through. And there are a lot of
another violating type situation.
There are lots of very personal questions that you have to disclose because they're wanting to make sure that they can collect as much evidence as they can.
Right.
And present the best case that they can if they choose to report to law enforcement.
Right.
And then if law enforcement is involved, there's more tough questions. And it's really hard to disclose a lot of those details about what happened in those moments.
And inevitably, you're thinking you're going to have to, at some point, face that offender again. And I get it.
It's really hard because if you look at prosecution from start to finish, especially if something goes to trial, a rape case can take up to 2 to 3 years.
Oh, that's crazy.
And you think of all that trauma that goes along with that process and over again, and you feel like you're being re-victimized over and over again because everything that's going on through your mind, or, the defense attorney or the district attorney's office, or just really, again, those evasive questions that law enforcement has to ask.
And inevitably, if it goes all the way to trial, then the other attorney's going to try to make you look.
Yeah, it's possible that, their job is to defend their client in the best way that they can, and that involves asking some really horrible and tough questions to the survivor while they're up on the stand. And part of what we do as advocates is that we are called to the hospital when there is a sexual assault exam. So there's an advocate that's present during that exam. Now it's completely up to the survivor of whether they want us in the room while that evidence is being collected. But we're there to spread that support through that exam. We're not to interfere with law enforcement or medical as they're collecting that evidence.
Just to
We
support.
are strictly there just for that support. And to be there for somebody in one of those horrible moments is honestly probably the most rewarding thing that I've ever done. Because when I started with the agency, I was a sexual assault volunteer. And that's what actually got me kind of, I guess, in the door, so to speak, as the director. But in that moment where you are strictly there to support someone who has been through something traumatic and you're there solely for them and you're helping them through that process, there is nothing that can even touch how that feels to actually be a part of that for somebody else.
Yeah.
And honestly, they are typically more concerned about how you're doing than what they're going through.
Sure.
So
they're numb at that point.
They're but their resilience, there's kind of that out of body experience, but their resilience is unbelievable because they know in that
little and this is tough conversation. Trent, how you doing over there, buddy? I'm struggling just a little. I'm not gonna lie, man. As a concerned and caring member of the community, okay, what are some things? And there's like this fine line, right? Like there's the busybody, and then there's the concerned citizen that's
right.
that that's just on the lookout, right? That's just present and aware, right? So what are the things as the present and aware concerned citizen, what are things that I say should, but could watch for to maybe help somebody potentially?
When you have a friend that they have a complete change in behavior, they're maybe extroverted, now they're introverted, appearance changes, just demeanor changes, start asking those questions. Like, are you okay? Is there something that you want to talk about? Not pressing the issue, but opening up that door so that if they do feel comfortable in disclosing to you, they know that door is open. And if they do decide to disclose to you, support them.
Believe them.
Believe them. First thing is believe them. Encourage them for their strength for actually telling you and trusting you with that information, because it's really, really hard to disclose that information because you don't know how someone's going to react and respond. And I think us as human beings is we want to hurry up and figure out how to solve that, and we're not really listening to what someone is saying to us. So actively listening, being present in that moment, and really listening. They're not expecting you to solve their problems.
You can't.
You can't.
I mean, pretty much you can't.
You can't, but be there in that moment and be comfortable with that uncomfortable silence, because it's going to be really hard for them to disclose. But the way you respond is how they're going to believe the whole world is going to respond. So if you shut them off, if you ask so many questions, if you don't believe them, if you're their friend and you don't believe them,
why would the police believe?
Then how are they going to call law enforcement? How are they going to call us if their closest friends don't believe what they're saying?
Right.
And so it's that first impression. We get one shot. And so if they go to law enforcement and they have a bad experience with law enforcement, the likelihood of them reporting in the future decreases. If they have a bad experience with an agency like mine.
Well, that just fills in. It supports, and it what's the word I'm looking for? It validates what they already thought and likely have been told by their abuser.
Absolutely.
is going to happen. Nobody's going to believe you anyway.
Yeah.
And the first time somebody doesn't, it's like, oh.
Yeah, he's right, or she's right. And even, I will say our law enforcement officers in Rutherford County, Murfreesboro Police Department, Rutherford County Sheriff's Department, Smyrna Police Department, Laverne Police Department.
All three of Eagleville's.
Yeah, exactly.
Love you, Eagleville.
Oh, well, is that, Hey, you know what? Eagleville's a great town.
It is.
Very, very small town, but great town. Our law enforcement is really, really good about walking someone through those processes and making sure that they collect the evidence they need to collect and really listen to what they are saying as they're going through these situations. Our law enforcement officers refer to us all the time. They go through the rights for domestic violence victims to make sure that they know how to access our services, whether that's an order of protection or our counseling services or even our shelter. They're going through all of those processes to make sure that they have that information available. Now, they may not reach out to us because they may not be ready to, but they really push.
Got to plant the seed.
To put that information out there. And really, that's sometimes what it's about. It's, what I say that we do, there's nothing that I can do to put it in a pretty little package and put it out in the community. Like, it's good, bad, and the ugly. Right. But we have to exist, and it's something that we have to talk about. Domestic violence and sexual violence happens, and we have to talk about it as a society to be a part of the solution.
I think that's the nail on the head. It is uncomfortable. It is something that that I. It's easy to say, well, I don't do that, and nobody that I know that I'm aware of at least does that. Right. So it's really not my problem. Like, that's really easy to do. Right. But the reality is that there's a better than average chance that I interact with somebody on a daily basis.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. If you look at if you look at the stats, it's 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men that have experienced domestic violence in their life.
That's crazy.
So you have walked beside someone, you've rode the bus with someone, just
I've
in
had coffee
any
with someone. Probably I've cut up with them.
Absolutely.
Maybe sold them a house.
Absolutely, and you don't know. There's no sign on their forehead that says, I'm a survivor of domestic violence, or I'm a survivor of sexual assault.
Or I'm currently going through it.
I'm currently going through it because they honestly don't know who they can trust.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's just trying to power through their day of just focusing on, I've got to do this, and this. Like, I can't fall apart. I've got to just keep pushing on.
Do it for the kids. Those kinds of,
and a lot of the times when children are involved, like, that's that driving force of, I've got to do this to take care of my kids.
Yeah, and if the abuser's abusing me, then the abuser's not abusing them. So kind of taking one for the team, which is crazy. But it, I mean,
and sometimes that as a mother, I would absolutely make that sacrifice if that's going to be my choice in life, that I'm that survivor of domestic violence, then I'm going to take that hit for my child.
Sure.
But more than likely they've witnessed your abuse, and about 60% of the children that are involved have experienced that abuse. And witnessed that abuse. And again, that's what they grow up in, and sometimes that's what they grow into too.
Right.
Because
on either side of it, right?
Right, because it's what they quote unquote is normal. It's what they've
how
seen,
it should be, or how it always was, or
that's what they've seen growing up, and they don't know anything different. And again, it's about breaking that cycle and getting that education and awareness out there, and to know that there are other avenues and there is hope out there. And it takes so much strength for someone to come forward.
Yeah.
And I think, sometimes that might be minimized, but it takes so much strength for someone to come forward.
So what can... I apologize. It has been a day. That was not a reflection on you. That was so embarrassing just now, Trent. Don't fix that in post for me, would you? Golly, it just snuck up on me. Anyways, as somebody that is active in our community, as somebody that wants to support the good things that are going on, somebody that's involved in Spread the Positive and trying to make this a better place to live, how can I get involved in y'all's mission? Like, what can I do? Right? Obviously, I can't be the person that's in the room with the advocate. Like, that is not my place, right? But what can I do to help?
Probably that would not probably be a good idea. You may thought exist. And there's no
And if
magic.
you encounter it,
and you encounter it, there are professionals that are out there that are wanting to help, and this is how I get someone there.
That's good. So, of course, I'm one of the owners of Cedar Glade Brews. So it's a brewery here, and we'll serve 400, 500, 600 people a week. So I could even potentially share that information, business cards, whatever, with my bartenders. And maybe there'd be an opportunity at some point.
Absolutely.
If they see something that trigger, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And we have business cards that have our crisis lines on them. So we have one for domestic violence and one for sexual assault. And on the back of those cards, we have 14 signs that someone may be in a dangerous relationship. And I keep those cards on me. I have dropped those at different places. My husband and I were actually getting my oil changed, and one of my cards fell out. And for that split second, that tech that was working on my vehicle was like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, he thought that I was in danger, and he was looking at me like, oh my God, like, what do I do? Like, what do I do? And I saw that look on his face, and I was like, hey, I
literally just dropped this.
I'm like,
I
actually work here for this agency. I was like, but I saw your wheels spinning, that you were like, oh my gosh, in this moment, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, do I need to call law enforcement? Like, do I need to get her in another room? Do I need to separate you two? Like, I could see that all over his face, that he was wanting to get involved. And I think that's a lot of the times people want to get involved, but they don't know how, and it's always kind of hard to get involved in people's personal business,
that's it.
too.
There's a fear of, what if I'm wrong?
Right.
Right? That's one fear. And then the second fear is it really my place should I stick my nose in someone
Right.
else's business, right?
Right.
And especially in this country, we are conditioned that it is not your place,
Right.
and that's a whole show in and of
Oh, yeah,
itself.
that's a whole, yeah.
Right? So something came to mind. What about and I know that it's happened forever, and it's just now kind of gotten a term. I say just now, the last 10 years, it's kind of gotten a term, and it's kind of been conversations have happened, those kinds of things, and that's with human trafficking.
Yes.
Is that something that crosses y'all's doorstep as well?
We don't directly serve human trafficking victims, but I will tell you that we do. They are underlining in domestic violence and sexual
And
assaults.
it's way more pervasive than people think it is, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it happens more in Rutherford County than people think.
The fact that it happens in Rutherford County is probably more than what people think.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. When you live by an interstate, that is a prime target for traffickers.
Sure. Easy access.
And, they truly prey on those that are very vulnerable, younger individuals who, have ran away from home or,
Could be in a situation that you would be helping.
That they could be in a domestic violence situation as well. And they're promising them a better life and an escape. And they make that choice and they don't realize what they've gotten involved in. These traffickers are very savvy. And it's very psychological, and they end up depending on this person.
Right.
There's a really good organization in Nashville called Ancora. They used to be in slavery, and they are hands down the expert in human trafficking. But we do see, though we don't serve it directly, we do see that.
That is crazy. Not in my.
I know,
not in my
it's
home.
it's so crazy. I never thought that I would ever be in a situation where I would even have to talk about trafficking. We think that happens in other
Big cities
countries,
and
bigger
yeah.
cities, but it happens in our backyard. And it happens more than we think. Just like domestic violence and sexual assault, it happens more than we think.
Yeah. And again, I think that's why it's so important, and this is why I'm so glad that you're here today and we're having this conversation, it is an uncomfortable conversation. It is something that we want to deny, right? It is something that we don't want to acknowledge that it's going on, and certainly acknowledge that it could be someone that we know that's a victim and or someone that we know that's a perpetrator.
Absolutely.
It's totally possible. And I think that just, I guess, normalizing the conversation and the fact that we can talk about it.
Absolutely.
It's a great start.
Absolutely. And I've always said that, if I could wave a magic wand and I could put myself out of a job, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
I would happily.
You want boring days, don't
I
you?
absolutely want some boring days, and, if I could end the pain for somebody else, that they don't have to experience the horrific things that they've had to experience in life.
Yeah. Where it should be a loving, trusting relationship.
Absolutely. And, and it could be. But again, it's really hard for someone to leave their abuser because you hold on to who they used to be, the good parts of those relationships, and you're just hoping that can turn back around.
Yeah.
And it typically takes someone 8 times to leave their abuser. Wow. And each time that they leave their abuser, that violence will escalate as well.
Yeah.
And we, Tennessee as a whole, for the last couple of years, has been in the top 10 for women who are killed by men. In Murfreesboro alone this year, we've had 5 domestic homicides, and we're just in April. And typically we have 7 to 8 a year, and we are at number 5. And, we had 2 in 1 week. And it's something that we have to talk about.
And isn't it interesting that inevitably, and I don't want to go super political or whatever, but inevitably every time oh, what could we have done? What could we have done? Oh gosh, I can't believe I never saw it coming. All of those kinds of things. Well, did you ever have a conversation?
Right.
Did you ever try to educate yourself? Did you ever, you know what I mean? And,
Right.
and I'm not necessarily like picking on folks, but no, you didn't see it coming because you weren't educated to be able to see it coming.
Right. Or again, like you said earlier, you didn't think that it was your place to step in.
Yeah.
Or
Or he was a good guy, or like I talk about this all the time, the good guy trap. Oh, he's a good guy. Yeah, sometimes he gets a little.
He's got a little bit of a temper, but he's a good guy.
Or he's just a little bit racist, but he's a good guy.
Yeah.
It's like, well, is he? I mean, let's really be honest about this.
Let's break this down a little bit. Yeah, you can't be one or the. It's you're one or the other. You can't be both.
Yeah.
And it's. I mean, again, it's really hard to get involved in those situations. And again, you're concerned about, are you seeing things correctly? Do you feel like it's your place to step in?
Mm-hmm.
But again, if we can open the communication across the board, I mean, it's everyone's issue to try to solve. Like, it's not just my agency, it's not just law enforcement, it's not just the DA's office. It's all of us working together and trying to make this a normal conversation to have.
And it's also the responsibility of our culture to not put up with this garbage, and to not support the things that support this type of behavior, whatever that is.
Right.
Right. And there's a plethora of things that, in my opinion, support this kind of behavior. And we can start down the road of all the things that get blamed. Mm-hmm. And the reality is not one single one of them is the cause, but they all contribute to the same mindset in culture. And I don't even need to say what it is, because you all know what I'm talking about. And if it contributes to that cultural mindset that this is okay or normal or just part of life or a power trip or whatever, then it contributes to this. And so when you shake your head and you scratch your head and you wonder, well, how did that happen? Mm-hmm. Look at what you listen to. Look at what you watch. Look at what you garbage in, garbage out. Look at what you tolerate. Look at what you are okay with walking by on the street. Look at look around, right?
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, a lot of it is about being aware and not like walking through life with those blinders on. Life is not always one
Yeah.
to really understand what someone is going through. It's the same thing, when someone's going through addiction, it's someone who's walked that walk and talked that talk. I can get you a heck of a lot quicker than someone who was just that textbook, like, okay, I've read all this stuff and now I can like tell you like what to do and how to do this. But,
Right.
You have to create a space where people feel safe in disclosing. And I feel like that is the main purpose of what my organization does.
Sure.
Is to create that safe place. We want to show you that there's a different life out there. And it's going to be a long road, but we're there for that road no matter what it looks like.
That's
and if
awesome.
you're not ready today, you're ready in 30 days, whether it's 60 days or whatever that looks like. We're going to continue to be here until you're ready.
Gotcha. I love it. Erika Downing, the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center here in Murfreesboro. If you know somebody that is that's living with some of these issues right now, make a phone call. Right? It is your place. Okay. If you are dealing with some of these issues right now, whichever one or both or whatever, make the call. you don't deserve it. Get out
Absolutely.
of the situation, right? And start here. Okay, start here and make that step. It's going to be hard, and it's not going to be fun, and it's scary, and we all acknowledge that. But you don't deserve it.
Absolutely. And we'll be with you every step of the way.
That's it. I love it. All right, Erika, thank you so much. Trent's going to put the links up as well, so you can check that out. You can always use incognito mode if you're worried about somebody looking at your history, right? There's a tip for you.
Yes.
If you don't know how to do that, send us a message. I don't know, whatever. We'll figure it out. We'll teach you how to do that. But get the help. We've got a little fundraiser on Friday night for J. Harmon Home Team clients and vendors, and we're going to be raising some money for your organization.
And we're very blessed that you've chosen to do that for us.
We hope that we're going to raise a ton of money for you guys. Because
Every little bit helps.
the work that you're doing needs to be supported. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for being a true Rutherford County native and doing the work right here in your home.
You know, I'm very blessed that I'm able to give back to the community that I grew up in.
Yeah.
You know, and really make that impact.
Even if it is Riverdale.
Even if it is Riverdale, I mean, that's where I was zoned for. I didn't have a choice in the matter. So, I mean,
There's always a choice.
Yeah.
Just picking. Anyway, so that's all we got. Trent, you got anything?
Nope. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Powerful. Thank you for what you do.
For sure. I guess that's it, man. If you have real estate needs, give me a shout. If you have mortgage needs, give Brian a shout. And if you have somebody that needs help, give Erika a shout.
And fun fact about Brian is he used to be a board member of mine.
No kidding. I didn't know that.
He is, and he's actually still on my advisory board. So
He's a good dude.
Brian is a good guy. He actually lets us use his space for training when we have training for sexual assault volunteers. He still
Gotcha.
lets us use his space so we can spread out and be at home there. So Brian is just a good guy all the way
didn't know
around.
that. Brian spreading the positive,
I'll tell you what, man.
being the
That guy
guy.
lives it out.
I just love him.
Me too.
You know. All right, that's all we got. Have a great rest of the week, and go spread some positive. Be good. Tell people a cool story. Tell a dad joke.
Tell a dad joke.
Dad jokes.
Bad
jokes.
dad joke.
Bad
Yes.
dad jokes are awesome. I
Yes,
am
they
such a fan. I can't think of one right now. I looked
No,
a
I'm
bunch up
blanking.
yesterday. Did you know we do a dad joke of the week on Cedar Glades
Yes.
social media?
I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, thanks. All right, that's all I got. Thank you so much. Thank you again. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.